Hello, leader. You built the business. You survived the early years. You have a wait list, the revenue, and of course, the reputation. And yet, you're still losing sleep over a team member who wants a raise but isn't delivering. Another who's great with clients but toxic behind the scenes. And then there's that team leader who avoids accountability conversations. And there's your fear that if you start holding people accountable, someone will quit and leave you scrambling. But here's what no one tells successful business owners. Revenue does not solve leadership problems. Reputation does not protect you from people problems. In fact, success amplifies them. Today, we're talking about why thriving businesses still struggle with team structure, hiring, firing, promoting, pay, and performance, and how you can evolve into a stronger leader without getting labeled as a bad boss in your own city or town. Welcome to the Stacking Your Team podcast, smart leadership for women who mean business. This show has been on air since 2018 to help women who own established brick-and-mortar businesses fix the people side of their business so they can stop carrying payroll pressure, stop over-functioning as the default decision maker, and build a team that actually performs without burning anyone out or damaging their reputation. I'm your host, Shelli Warren. My entire career has been built on leadership coaching, team development, and creating accountable, productive cultures inside real workplaces. Over here, we don't just talk about leadership, we live it. This isn't online leadership theory, academic research, or HR speak. The work we do here is grounded in real teams, real workplaces, and real consequences. Each episode delivers practical, no-fluff strategies to help you lead a team that can carry the business forward with you, not on your back. And I'll say it again, the team that got you here might not be the team that gets you there. Let's go. Here's the myth that small business owners believe. Once I'm successful, this will all get a whole lot easier. Sorry, that's just not true. Just because you now have money doesn't mean you can just throw it at a problem and think it will be fixed for good and forever and ever. Amen. I know this because I see it every day in my work. I've coached women who own established brick-and-mortar practices. They have anywhere from 5 to 50 team members. They have strong revenue, and they're respected locally. And yet, before they came under my care, they went to Google or an open AI tool to ask questions like these. How to give feedback without him quitting. How to fire someone legally and professionally. How to deal with entitled people. How to ask someone to improve their performance. How to stop being a people pleaser as a boss. Can an employee ruin your reputation? What are the signs your team doesn't respect you? Now, you may have searched online for the answers to these questions too. And here's what we know for sure. Success creates complexity because your team and client base grows, and now you have more personalities to deal with, more payroll pressure, more client expectations, more exposure in your local community through word of mouth and the employment opportunities you've created, and what can feel like a higher risk if someone leaves suddenly. Because here's the facts. Your business may be established, but your leadership still has to evolve. So let's get into some topics that no one is talking about. First up, let's take a minute to look at what happens when your team structure drifts, even though the business is successful. So picture this. You promoted someone because they were loyal, not actually capable, as much as you'd like, for the role. You don't have a clear org chart. You're basically just trying to put out fires and survive the month or the quarter by shuffling people around. Or you've adopted the mode of everyone does everything, but that often leads to nobody doing anything other than being frustrated by each other. And then a few of your highest performing people are always the one to step in and do the thing. And here's the doozy. You're still the default decision maker and the backup to every problem. And you're the one that everyone runs to. Next up, let's take a minute to look at what happens when you hire under pressure because your team is successful and it keeps continuing to need more people to deliver the services that are so in demand. Does this sound familiar? I just need a body. Geez, these AI-generated resumes that look perfect, it's making me nervous. Can I believe what this resume is saying? Or feeling fearful for long vacancies while you're trying to find your next best hire because someone has to pick up the slack and take care of these clients. And then there's this, not having any kind of structured interview process. So each candidate gets a different experience and you're not comparing apples to apples. So how you consider your top candidates, well, it's a little fuzzy. Then there's this common situation when your business is successful and your team sees it, so they keep asking for more money. You've likely found yourself in this moment more than once. Well, she asked for a raise and I panicked. Or not having any actual compensation plan or a drumbeat, so your team thinks it's very okay to keep asking for raises anytime throughout the year. Sometimes the same person will ask more than once a year. Or no way of responding to these requests for a raise, and it's really jarring. It throws you off balance, so you start to pull back from your team, or you make pay decisions based on your emotions, or the team members' emotions, or their personal situation that they shared with you as the reason to why they're asking for the raise. And this sets your accountant's hair on fire because there's no continuity within your pay structure. So doing payroll every month is a nightmare. Or this might be familiar. No set standards for performance that are tied to pay. So everyone thinks that they are the hardest working person on the team. And that's just not true. Oh gosh, how are you feeling? What about these next two situations that are tied together and can arise when your business is successful and you're worried about what people will say about you out on the street? You worry terribly about firing someone because you're afraid of what will be said about you in your community and how awful it would be if they left you a bad Google review or jumped onto some other social media platform to talk about it. In small communities, this is a very real concern, and you don't want to be labeled as difficult to work for and lose out on the chance for great people to apply to join your team. Now, tied to the fear of firing is the fear of confrontation. So instead of having an adult conversation about expectations and providing some feedback, you overcompensate for anyone who's not meeting your expectations. And sometimes this goes on for months. I had a client who took a full year, a full year to fire someone who she knew had to go, but she let the concern of small town chatter cloud her judgment. That and the fact that she kept hoping this person would improve. They didn't. If you've been there, you know how you can find yourself stepping into redo work or make tweaks to the work so that nothing leaves your office without your stamp of approval. You tell yourself you want to ensure your brand is protected, but wow, it takes a lot of time and energy to protect weaker performers, redo their work, and then beat yourself up because you know you're overpaying them. And when all of this reluctance to fire underperforming team members is going on, your strong team members are noticing and becoming more and more frustrated with you. So they dust off their LinkedIn profile and start quietly looking elsewhere. So let's take a pause here as I remind you. You are not weak. You were trained in your craft, and you are a master at it. Your professional training prepared you for service delivery, not the strategy behind leading a team. Many successful women leaders struggle with thoughts like these. I don't want to be seen as harsh. What if they all quit? What if they tell people I'm hard to work for? What if my reputation suffers? So what happens? You lower standards, delay conversations, you absorb all the stress, you work longer hours, you become resentful of your team, and sometimes pine for the early days when it was just you and a very small team. I get it. And here's the truth. Being kind is not the same as turning a blind eye for today. Being strong is not the same as being difficult. Setting standards doesn't make you intimidating. And when you avoid leadership to protect your image, all you're really doing is damaging your credibility and respectability. So you might be asking yourself, what would actually help me evolve as a leader? Well, after years supporting successful business owners through team restructures, terminations, promotions, compensation redesign, people development, and accountability systems, I have seen this pattern over and over again. The businesses that stabilize and then grow are led by women who decide, I will define what best looks like. I will align pay with performance, not work anniversaries. I will promote based on capability, not obligation, because they've been with me since I opened my doors. I will stop protecting adults from professional expectations. And I will not carry payroll pressure alone by being the top revenue generator anymore. It's always incredible to watch them stop carrying everything and start creating systems that carry the business. So as we wrap up today, let me remind you that you've built an incredible business. You pay your team well, and together you're having a positive impact in your community and your niche. It's very important that you know that you can be a strong leader without being difficult. It's all in the approach, the messaging, the language, the tone, the proximity to your team, and the relationships you build with them as individuals. When you're known as a leader who is a great communicator, you will be respected. People will appreciate the predictability they feel knowing you will and how you will make a decision because you don't apologize for standards, but instead explain why the standard was set in the first place. That's not being difficult. That's leadership maturity. And ironically, when you raise your standards, your strongest team members lean further in. Your culture stabilizes. Your reputation improves. Your confidence increases. So does theirs. You don't have to keep guessing. You don't have to carry this alone. And you don't have to Google your way through people problems at 11 o'clock at night because you can't sleep. You can evolve, not into someone colder, not into someone harsher, into someone clearer. If this episode felt uncomfortably familiar, if you have the revenue, the reputation, and the waitlist, but your team structure feels fragile, and if you're tired of being the default decision maker, the emotional shock absorber, the one who fixes everything quietly, then it's time to build leadership structure that matches your business success. Inside the Leadership Lab, we work on clear org structure, pay plans, career paths and compensation alignment, performance standards, hiring standards, accountability conversations, promotion readiness, letting go of chronic underperformance, and reducing founder dependency on decision makers and revenue building. This isn't theory. This is real workplace leadership for real brick and mortar teams. You deserve a business that performs without you carrying everyone. And you can be strong, you can be respected, and you can lead without fear of being labeled as difficult to work with. And you don't have to do it alone. I'm here for you. If today's episode helps you see your leadership in a new way, I'd love to hear about it. Come connect with me on Instagram, where I'm at Stacking Your Team, and tell me what's troubling you about your team right now. And hey, if you're tuning into this podcast because you work somewhere and you want to develop your leadership skills, I invite you to start following our sister company, Thousand Islands Leadership Consulting. Check us out on Instagram or LinkedIn so you can chart your course to the next level of leadership.
This is Ellie. Come back next Tuesday. My Mimi will have another episode for you.